Magandang araw po sa inyo. I'm Caris Avendaño Cruz and I wrote the Filipino folklore-inspired middle grade fantasy, Marikit and the Ocean of Stars. Marikit and the Ocean of Stars cover art is wonderfully illustrated by Filipino-Canadian artist Alexis Young. The book's editor is Tricia de Guzman, a brilliant, hardworking Filipino immigrant, so this book has so much Filipino heart. Marikit is a young girl who's about to celebrate her 10th birthday. Her nana is the best seamstress in the barrio and is always working behind a vintage sewing machine. All Marikit wanted was a big blue dress for her birthday, but her nana gives her something else. It's a dress made out of different patches woven together. That dress is a map that will lead her to the land of the Encanto so she could become a diwata, a fairy. Marikit is a fantasy adventure that takes us from one enchanted land to another, letting us meet creatures and gods and goddesses from the Filipino mythology. It is a story that takes you here, to where I am, a land of green fields and sticky sunny skies, where the people you meet have so much humor and so much heart. It is a celebration of our culture, a way to remind younger Filipinos that our stories exist and that they should persist. This story is inspired by my inang Tashang, who's an amazing seamstress, and her old makinang de pajak. It was the most curious thing to me when I was a kid. I loved watching her sew and go through her collections of buttons and play around with the scraps of fabrics that fall out of her machine. I'd love to read to you one of my favorite chapters in this book. It's called The Harvest House. Chapter 9, Harvest House. Tikbalang, Filipino, noun. A burly giant with the body of a man and the head and hooves of a horse, usually dwelling in high trees and constantly engrossed in playing cruel tricks to the wondering and wondering. Traveling by everywhere, as Marikit would describe, was a TT, as in totally tiring, tremendously thrilling, or terribly terrifying. She walked through a road that drizzled with bright white pearls coming from clam-shaped clouds. She tried to catch the pearls, but they vanished as soon as they landed on her palms. Then she walked through pastel-colored loops without falling as she crossed the ceiling. There were roads that didn't let her through. The roads rolled stones ahead to block her and threatened to bite her. Once a road filled with sunflowers growled at her like a lion. Another time a path of pineapples opened their eyes and glared at her as she took the first step. She and Ali ran back in fright. Ali, who had still not decided which of Marikit's dress pockets was better, slipped into one side for 15 minutes and then the other for the next 15. He talked to Marikit, sang with her. He had a lovely voice if he knew the melody. Got startled whenever she hopped like a frog and tumbled on the ground, and worried if she was bruised. Then he decided to fly close to her to remind her not to get herself hurt. The hopping and the tumbling soon eased to 3 times per road. Both of them treaded a wide footpath in between sprawling yellow fields overlooked by several rice terraces. Verdant balconies of wheat reflected the warm color of the noonday sun that hung in the stationary sky. The air dripped with honeyed humidity and carried the fresh scent of harvest as soft hay brushed against Marikit's feet and bundles of wheat were stacked against each other. Marikit glanced down at her dress. A shoe-shaped patch across her chest started glowing, the threads on its subtle print swaying like long stalks of grass bathed in sunlight. Words appeared in a cursive stitch, glowing in light threads. Ikapati's farm, she read from her map. Ali, who's Ikapati? Goddess of agriculture, the overseer of harvest, came Ali's prompt answer. But isn't that the work of the farmers? Not really, Ali sailed beside her as she walked. Farmers till the soil, plant the seeds, spread fertilizer, then cross their fingers so they get a good return. The one who gives that return is Ikapati. She looks over their shoulders, checks if they are following the proper farming guidelines, and grades them. Then she coordinates with the weather god to keep the storms away. Though sometimes she forgets. Sometimes she argues with the weather god and he gets revenge by raining on her harvest. It's a pretty complicated business. Farmers, Marikit mumbled. I already told you, Ali rolled his eyes. It's a kapati. No, I mean there are farmers, Marikit pointed at the golden rice fields. Look! Between the gaps of the tall blades of wheat were visions of straw hats and sickles and towels wrapped around several shoulders. They moved around, bending and pulling off the grains with their own hands. Some hauled bundles of hay on their backs. Boots squeaked in the knee-deep mud, marching in the cadence of a song they merrily hummed. Hi! Marikit greeted as loud as she could, waving her hands and jumping from where she stood. Ali nudged her. What are you doing? Greeting people. You don't just say hi to an encanto. Ali flew so close to Marikit's eyes that she got dizzy. We read greetings differently. To some it might also mean, eat me, or here I am trespassing on your land. Marikit could see in between the gaps of the wheat that the farmers had raised their hands, their sickles dancing in the air. I don't think they disliked it, Marikit pointed out. See? They're waving back. Ali peered into the fields. Indeed, the farmers logged toward their direction, their feet sloshing with mud, their straw hat-covered heads rising from the field. But there was something different about them. As the sun hit their faces, Marikit could see that they did not have human noses. They are stretched outward, with smoke streaming from their nostrils, some with spots and blazes across their foreheads. Marikit could see their beady and blinking round eyes, their conical ears flicking atop their long heads, and their mouths opening to a loud chorus of neighs that made Marikit fall to the ground, shrieking, Tikbalang! Thank you so much to the Filipino School of New York and New Jersey, and to the Bergenfield Public Library for having me here. Maraming salamat po for supporting Filipino authored books. See you again soon!